Thank you all for joining us today for a conversation with Susan Rabel, the new Executive Director at LifeLink of Florida. Susan, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Steve.
Susan, before we begin, can you tell us sort of your background and what got you into organ donation?
Sure. I took a very circuitous education route. I started my bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry because I had an interest in research. And I had no idea what that might look like, but I knew that I had an interest in it. Well, then when I graduated from my undergrad, I realized that I needed to be gainfully employed, and that wasn't doing it right then and there. So I got an associate's degree in nursing. And because I was interested, well, I started in the emergency room. That's really my true love for patient care. And then because I still had that itch for research, the Moffitt Cancer Center had opened up out at the University of South Florida. So I was compelled to go and investigate that. And they literally had just opened their doors in 1986. And I went there in 1986. And I started out in patient care and did that for a very, very brief time. And then was in a series of progressively increasing managerial experience jobs. And I had an amazing mentor there who exposed me to every aspect of healthcare and management. And I really, really loved it. And while I was at Moffitt, I realized, well, they weren't doing any bench research, and I certainly wasn't getting my PhD in basic science. And so I got my master's degree in healthcare administration. And that began my management career. So I spent about 11 years at the Cancer Center. And then I went for just a couple of years. I worked in managed care and realized for sure that I did not like the for-profit side of healthcare. And so I found myself back in oncology, and I worked at the American Cancer Society. And again, I had a number of positions there, but my last position was vice president for cancer control for the state of Florida with the American Cancer Society. And then I had the great idea that I would retire. So I did. I retired in December, and by February, I was looking for another job. And it was a very random ad that was placed in the newspaper. Remember those? Where
yes.
There were employment opportunities in the newspaper. So there was a quarter-page ad in the newspaper in the Tampa Tribune one day for this position at LifeLink. And I looked down the list and I said, oh, I got that. I have that. I have that. And so I applied, and here I am. It was not deliberate at all, I will tell you that.
Oh, that's good. That's great. It's a wonderful story, though, of how you ended up where you are. And yes, I do remember the old newspaper ads. So
I actually still have the hard copy of that ad.
that's great. So you've had sort of a circuitous route to get to where you are. And obviously patient care, from the sounds of it, was really important to you as you move through your career. Is there an organ donation story that has stuck with you, and as you've worked in this field now for a while, and helps motivate you?
You know, I'll tell you two things, Steve. When I was interested in this position, and my initial interview phase was in the spring of 2012. And I can remember sitting at my family Easter dinner and looking around the table and thinking to myself, there's my sister-in-law's dad who has a liver transplant. And then I have a lot of nieces and nephews who have had a lot of sports injuries over the years. And I looked at all of them and I thought, we are a donation family. You know, we have a donation story with my family. But the thing that really struck me and has stuck with me for all of these years is in the first couple of weeks of my employment here, I got to be part of a patient, recipient, and donor family meeting.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it as clear as it was yesterday. I can tell you what everybody had on in the room. That's how impactful it was to me. But it was the story of an 18-year-old young man who was killed in a car accident.
Mm.
And the mom and sister were meeting with the heart recipient. And what struck me in that room, in that moment, was the grace and the courage and the gratitude felt by that recipient, and the comfort felt by that donor family, knowing that something so wonderful came from something so tragic. And truly, that was her son's legacy. And that donor mom has been an active volunteer with us for the entire time that I have been here. And most recently, she participated in our regional learning congress for hospitals back in at the end of February. And we just have that connection, and that really solidified for me the value of what we do.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And I'm sure so early on in your tenure that it would stick with you. So
Yes.
that's great. How would you describe, obviously that made a huge impact on you. How would you describe your leadership style now?
You know, I'll tell you, Steve, because I started in management so very young in my career. I was literally in my mid-20s.
Mhm.
I will say with certainty that my management style has changed over the years as I've had experience and maturity. But right now, I think as mandated by our current environment, it has to be transformational. We have so much to do, and we have to be in a position where we can try different things to see if they're going to move the needle and help us get more people off the list. So we have got to establish in our environment a culture of transformation and wanting to change and wanting to lead the change. So that is where I have landed right now.
Okay, that's great. I mean, and so you talked about transformation. So what are there new practices or operational changes you've implemented that you can talk to since
Well,
taking?
yes, in the last several months, and again, I've been in this position since July, we've done a couple of things I think that have made some impact. We recently expanded our clinical triggers in our work with our donor hospitals to cast a much wider net so that we have greater opportunity for donation. And we implemented it in the last quarter of calendar 22. And in that quarter, we had a 29% increase in referrals. And so, oh, excuse me, it has impacted our DCD donations as well. They have increased, and that was the intent. So we are still in the evaluation phase of the impact on that, but the numbers are startling. And the
That's
other thing that we did in the past 2 months, actually, which I never thought I would see here, we started to pump kidneys.
okay.
So we're pumping kidneys now, and we are also in the evaluative phase for a donor care unit, and moving very in the progressive manner into getting that established with the local transplant center.
That's amazing change. I mean, the 29% increase, but it'll be interesting to watch your progress on the DCU and see how you
Yes.
guys do. Because I know Tampa's right across from you guys.
Yes, it is.
And
And you know, we're a small. Our DSA has 15 counties, and we have 2 transplant centers and 1 pediatric one that does a very low volume.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So given all this operational change, what are your goals for LifeLink of Florida? And then how do those complement LifeLink Foundation's goals? So,
well, I can tell you that we have a 2025 goal of 1,100 transplants.
that's
and that is certainly in line with our mission, you know, to save and enhance lives through organ and tissue transplantation. So my goal for this OPO is to grow donation and to get to that 1,100 number, and also to make sure that our staff have the ability to grow. It's really important that we keep them engaged and keep them involved and keep them interested and connected to our mission, because we will not get any of those organs transplanted without our staff. And, we understand, all of us do, that these are not easy jobs for our folks. And we want to make sure that they're staying with us.
No, that's great. I mean, it's great that you're challenging your team, but you also recognize that you need that team and you need to support that team to get where you need to go. So
Absolutely.
So I wish you luck on that.
Thank you.
So before we close, is there anything else you'd like to share with your OPO colleagues?
I think the thing that I am most interested in the NASM report. And the reason for that is that it addressed not only OPOs, but all aspects of the transplantation continuum. So, it's the donor hospital that has a significant role. It's the OPO that has a role. It's the donor families. It's the donor registry. It's the transplant centers and their acceptance practices. They all play a role in this. I mean, we can answer all the referrals and talk to all the families, but if the transplant centers acceptance practices are such that it's impeding our ability to place the organs, that's significant. So I'm excited for the opportunity to see some of those recommendations implemented and partner with the transplant centers really to get us to the 1,100, but to get the community to the 50,000 and to get more people off the list.
Well, and we appreciate that, and that's great. We look forward to partnering with you as you move forward. And as I said, you've set the bar high, challenging. I think that lays down the challenge for a lot of your colleagues, but I think that's great. So, well, Susan, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the opportunity to get to know you a little better, and for your colleagues to get to know you a little better. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you so much.